What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Champagne Leatherwork. I'm Ronnie Champagne, and today we're going to do a top 10 for the newbies. Alright, so yeah, welcome back. I've had a lot of comments recently that there's a lot of beginners watching my videos, and I want people to not make the same mistakes that I did in buying tools, whereas I bought like everything and just see what stuck. I'm going to give my top recommendations, my top 10. And after a few years of making leather goods, these are the ones that I like the most out of the ones that I've purchased. I haven't tried everything out there, so I'm sure that there are better tools than the ones that I'm going to recommend. But some of them honestly might be the top of the top, for at least for the price that you can pay. Now obviously I'm not as tenured as most of these leather professionals on the tube, but I'm just going to say that I have spent a couple years doing this, and I do like to throw money at things. And as much as that pains me to admit, it means that I've tried a few more tools than I probably should have. And I probably will spend more money on tools than I probably should have. The links for almost everything I mentioned will be in the description below. I'm also going to have a couple links to websites where you can get leather or supplies, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit towards the end. Alright, so I guess we're just going to get right into it, starting with number 10. So number 10 on my list is not exactly essential, but if you want to make a quality vegetable tan product, I think it's actually 100% essential, and that is the wood slickers. These are wood burnishers, whatever you want to call them. These are designed to take your leather edges and whatever slicking medium you choose to use, and through friction, you rub it down and you get them nice and shiny. I made a video on this very recently. If you want to check that out, feel free. And I would definitely recommend a small one and a large one. Not needed. If you're gonna get one, just get the large one. But the small one definitely helps with internal holes that you're trying to burnish where this one can't quite fit. Doesn't come in as handy as this one, the bigger one, but it definitely will be an essential part of your leather craft. So that's number 10. Not much more to say about that. Number 9, again, debatable as to whether it is essential or not, but I think if you're trying to make a quality product, it absolutely is, and that is edge bevelers. Now these things will take a 90-degree angle of your leather edge and round it off to make burnishing a little bit easier and smoother, and it won't mushroom the edge. The ones that I have here are from a brand called Odin I found on Amazon, and I think bang for buck, these are the absolute best ones that you can get. So they sell 1 through 5, and I would say right off the bat, you do not need to buy 1 through 5. 1 and 5, kind of pointless, honestly. They're rare use occasions. The 5 might be for a really thick leather, and the 1 is going to be for a super thin ply, and I wouldn't even use it on a leather that might shred because it's just going to cause you problems. So the 1 and the 5, don't even think about when you're starting. Now, if you're going to buy one of these, because you only really need one to get started, I would recommend the 3. The 3 is about all around for slightly thicker to slightly thinner edges. You're not going to get everything with this. If you want to buy 2 and cover a broader range, I would recommend the 2 and the 4. The 4 definitely does work on the thicker ones, and the 2 is definitely going to cover a lot of the small weight leathers that you're going to come across. So if you want to get 2 of these, I think that'll cover the broadest range to start with. I would get a 2 and a 4, and if you're trying to do a more budget-friendly option, definitely go with the 3. But yeah, bevelers is number 9. Moving on to number 8, we have the wing dividers. Now, please excuse mine, they are extremely rusty. This is the one I got from a starter kit, and this is actually a Tandy one. I ordered it later on, and it's still rusty. I work in a basement, and it gets dingy, and in the summers it gets super moist. So your leather tools, if you work in a basement and you leave them for a long time, they're gonna rust, just like these. Enough about that. The wing divider is a great tool that you can use to draw a straight line next to the edge of a piece of leather. And why is that handy? Well, for one, I use this one to draw my glue line. You don't need to draw a glue line, but I do because I want to know exactly where I want to place my glue and where I don't want to go over it. Not essential. But what is essential is this one, and I use this one for 2 things. I use this one to draw my stitching line, and that tells me where to punch my stitches, and I also use it set the same 3 to 4 millimeter distance to mark my trim allowance. And that is used when I'm using multiple weights of leather put together and I want to just create a more refined edge. I'll draw that and I'll just trim it on that line, and it's nice and flat straight across. There's a couple times when I would like maybe to have another 1 or 2 of these that I can set at, you know, predetermined lengths. But for now I have 2 and they work great. So that's why the wing divider is number 8. Moving on to number 7, it is the ruler. And not only just a ruler, this one's special. This one has a cork back. The cork backed ruler is going to be your best friend when you're cutting anything, or honestly measuring anything. I have the 18-inch one here, and I would definitely recommend an 18-inch. You'll use 18 inches for most of your projects. If you're going anything crazy big, you can buy a bigger one, but 18, great. 12, too small, 18, great. The cork back is kind of where it's essential. This does 2 things. The cork back allows your ruler to sit firmly and snugly on the leather that you're cutting, and it also prevents the ruler from damaging the leather while you were cutting it. I was using a non-cork backed ruler for a while, and I found that especially on my vegetable tan leather, the sharp edges on the edge of the ruler were cutting the leather, leaving marks that were permanent into my products, and I couldn't do anything about it. So I got a cork backed ruler, solved all that, and also it doesn't like to slip around anymore. It's pretty grippy once you push it down. So do not sleep on a cork backed ruler, and that is why this one is number 7. Moving on to number 6. It's right here already. It's been with us this whole time. Now you might say, well, where is it? That's because it's right here. It's the cutting mat. It's a self-healing cutting mat. Now I don't have one to show you because I've been using these 2 for years, but if you can get one, they're great. They have measurements on them, and the bigger you can buy, the better. Let me tell you, I started out with like a 6x8 one, and I quickly outgrew that within a week. Moved up a little bit, not big enough. I bought one of these and I needed a second one, and now my whole cutting surface is this self-healing mat. I've had these for a few years now, and these work great. You don't need to buy this big, but I would definitely recommend at least a decent sized one. The bigger it is, the straighter the cuts you can get, the more you don't have to worry about moving your leather when you're trying to cut. So a cutting mat, so essential. Again, don't sleep on this. This will save you a lot of headaches if you just get a good one and get the biggest one you can get from the start. And that right there, cutting mat at number 6. Number 5, we're starting to get into like the epitome of leather craft tools. And we're gonna kick this section off with the diamond chisels. These right here are what create your stitching holes when you're trying to create them. But these ones I like a lot because they are polished and they're just simple, clean, and that's what they are. I would recommend diamond chisels to start with. At 4 millimeter, 4 millimeter I think is the best overall length. You can get bigger widths for other projects, and you can get smaller widths if you're trying to make a more refined project, but I think a 4 millimeter is the best way to start. There's also this kit that you can get from Tandy. It's a craft tool kit, and it comes with this little screw top, and you screw it right onto the edge of the chisel, and it will give you diamond chisels. I like these ones because you get a long puncture with little to no change throughout the puncture, whereas some other ones have like more of a taper at the top that, I don't know, kind of can be annoying sometimes. The problem that I had with these is I bought them thinking that 4 millimeter was the 4 millimeter that we're all familiar with. Now, when you line these up, these are technically both 4 millimeter. Most chisels are measured from tip to tip. The craft tool ones are measured from gap to gap, so like the space in between the gaps. I don't know why craft tool decided to do it this way, but 4 millimeter tip to tip is the way to go. I would definitely recommend looking for stitches per inch, SPI. Stitch per inch will give you the best accurate description of the size of your chisels. These polished ones are great because they don't get stuck in your leather as easy. They kind of just pull it out. These ones, I've used them for a while. They do get stuck. They're like painted, they have a coating on them. I've kind of worn out a couple of these where the paintings come off, and I like that way better. But if you're trying to do the most off the bat, I can't recommend these enough. These ones have gotten me through so much and have taught me so much. But if you're just trying to get into it and you want the best bang for your buck, I cannot recommend these ones more, because these are wonderful, wonderful irons, and these will actually carry you very far. And that is the diamond stitching punch at number 5. Number 4 is another sleeper pick, and that is a mallet of some sort. You can get these poly mallets, which are like what everyone buys in Leathercraft. This came with a starter kit forever ago, or you can get a rubber mallet. I prefer the rubber mallet. If I had a poly mallet that was like my rubber, where it was kind of like that, I might like it more. But I find that if you're trying to hit something on the tip, this one kind of slides off, whereas this one, because it's flat, it'll hit it nice and good. Either one is fine, whatever you prefer. I've got links for both in the description below. But really, a hammer, you are gonna need one of these, absolutely, so pick one up. You can get them pretty cheap too, so I don't really have a whole lot to say about these. The mallet is a mallet. I will say though, do not use a metal hammer or mallet when using your tools, because you're gonna mushroom and bend the end of your tool when you're trying to use it. You'll cause damage. If you're trying to get the most life out of your tools, definitely use rubber mallet, poly mallet. Can't go wrong with either. I just have my preference of the rubber because I've been using it for so long. But that's all I got there. Yeah, nothing else to say. Number 4 is the mallet. Number 3, definitely the smallest tool that you'll probably use, and that is stitching needles. Now, these are disposable. You get quite a few uses out of them before you have to get rid of them, but the needle itself is not a tool that's gonna last you a lifetime. So my favorite needles that I found are CS Osborne 517-0 harness needles. Now, you can get Glover's needles, and the difference is that on harness needles, they have a blunt tip, and on Glover's needles, they have a sharp dagger tip. The problem with the dagger tip, if you don't know what you're doing, you can cut your thread when you're trying to reinsert the needle back through the stitching hole. You can accidentally puncture through your leather product on the other side where the hole wasn't, which I've done plenty of times because I started with those, and let me tell you, you go right through the hole and you think you have it and it's getting stuck a little bit in there, so you push more and you come out a millimeter or two away from your stitching hole, and you've essentially kind of ruined your product. You can get away with it sometimes, but honestly, not most of the time. So I would recommend for sure the harness needles because they have the blunt tip. Now, you can get these on buckleguy.com. Now, I prefer the 517-0 harness needles partnered with the 0.040 inch medium to lightweight Maine waxed thread cord. Now, Maine is a great thread to start with. I use Ritza Tiger thread currently for my products, but I think that can be a little bit overkill, especially if you're starting and it's more expensive. The Maine wax thread is great for beginners through experts, and if you like it, it's something that you can carry on for a while. So, like I said, would absolutely recommend the CS Osborne 517-0 harness needles partnered with the Maine waxed thread cord of 0.040 inch of any color you want, and you'll get a great look for the 4mm stitching punches. So that is a lot of info on such a small thing, but I think one of the most confusing things when I started was needles and was thread, and I think if you start there, you'll be golden. And then if you want to do more research, feel free. And that is why needles on number 3. So number 2 is one of the tools that people think about when they think about leathercraft, and it is the scratch awl. These are super handy for so many different things. What I use them for the most is I draw the pattern out onto my leather before I cut it. I don't like using a pen. I just like to use my scratch awl. It works great. These can be good for when you're stitching. Let's say maybe you didn't punch your stitching hole through it enough. You can run the scratch awl through it and open that hole up a little bit more. You can use them to take off a side of the double-sided sticky tape. You can use these for so many things, and you would be surprised as to how handy a little tiny needle dagger can actually be. So I put this one down below, and I think I actually might have this one too. So this is a craft tool one, and this is one that I found on Amazon. I like this one a lot because it's got a bigger grip. I do like the smaller one here, and I was using this for a while, but I found that the bigger one, definitely more for me. That's really all I gotta say. Number 2, the scratch all. Okay, we've officially made it to number 1, and I think this is, again, kind of a sleeper pick, but absolutely essential if you're making anything in leather. And that is an X-Acto knife, or some kind of craft knife. You can get a cheap one, you can get an expensive one. Honestly, this one isn't even expensive, it just has a rubber grip, and that's why I like it. But these are so good because you can get blades for them, so when your blade becomes unsharp, all you have to do is replace it. Now I like not replacing my blades. I mean, you can get something like this where you can strop it over time, but I found that you cannot go wrong with the X-Acto knife. When you put a new blade on one of these things, it cuts perfectly through the thickest of leathers, and they work with the ruler, they work freehand for cutting out unique designs, and I think if you're gonna cut your leather, you're gonna need one of these. Like, this should really honestly be the first knife that you ever get when you're making leather stuff, because I cannot stress enough how crazy important a sharp blade is, and more specifically, a blade that you can get comfortable with cutting out stuff. Some pockets have little curved designs to them, and when you are cutting those out, if you can get confident with a knife, you'll cut them out amazing every single time. And how easy is it to slap a nice sharp blade on that when it gets dull? But when it comes down to it, yeah, just a X-Acto knife or some kind of craft knife. Can't recommend this enough. I'm sad that we're at number 1 because that means the end of the list, but...
Or wait, does it?
All right, gonna rapid fire a few bonus tools out there. I would say that some kind of glue applicator device and glue spreader device, absolutely essential. You can use your finger, that gets messy, and you can get your finger stuck places that you don't want to get it stuck because it's going to be glued to them. I've been using this little dropper bottle and this little spreader here. I like them a lot, and this is the method that I'll probably use for a while. So the next out of the bonus credit things, but a rotary cutter. These things are so good for cutting straight lines against a ruler. The blades, because they're rotaries, they kind of last quite a while actually, like a surprising long amount, but they're even easy to replace if you need to. So rotary cutter, definitely recommend that. Corner punches. Now, if you're, like I said before, if you're trying to make some more refined products, rounding off your edges one chop at a time could, take some time. So I would recommend some corner punches. One quick funk and your leather edge is rounded. Now, they do take some practice getting used to. So yeah, corner punches definitely helpful, especially if you're trying to speed up production. And the last little bonus showcase I'm going to give to the French edger. This is a skiving device that you use to take leather thickness down and taper it down for pockets and other things. I recommend one of these. Not essential at all, but definitely going to make your products look a little bit better. And if you can get one of these to start with, you're going to get better with it over time. So yeah, that's the bonus section. So double bonus section, I just want to say where to get some leather from. I like to get my vegetable tan leather from buckleguy.com, and I like to get my chrome tan leather from Acadia Leather. They have some super cheap leathers that if you're trying to start leathercraft, I would recommend picking up just the cheapest leather chrome tan panel that you can find on like acadialeather.com, and just do what you can with that. You're gonna mess up, you're gonna do bad things. So if you can just get your hands on the cheapest, ugliest leather that you can find, put it to use because no one else is buying it. Would absolutely recommend doing that. Well, thanks for listening to my top 10 today, which honestly turned into like a top 15, but whatever. If you could do me the biggest favor and hit that subscribe button below, I would greatly appreciate it. You don't have to do that though, but every time you do, a leathercraft newbie moves off the streets and finds a nice, comfy home where they belong. Thank you.